Hello folks, this video is intended for you to see how I perform the analysis in one of the texts you have included in our handbook. This is the one on page 43. The text is an excerpt from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and it is an excerpt, and it is called The Scar, La Cicatriz in Spanish. I will carry out the first activity, the one that you are now in a position to perform, which suggests that you identify one instance of non-correspondence that may be said to spring from a difference in the setting of the pro-drop parameter. You're asked to provide a contrastive grammatical analysis of such example, of course, as is present in the two languages, and then you should analyze the argument structure of the clause at hand. This is the only activity 2.1 that you are now in a position to perform. So, please, I will ask you to read the text thoroughly and read the text in Spanish completely as well. And in particular, I will focus in this case on the sentence "it looked normal" towards the end of the English text, and its counterpart in Spanish, parecía normal. Okay? So this is the analysis that we have prepared for you. We have chosen the sentences "it looked normal" and "parecía normal" as example of non-correspondence that may be said to spring from a difference in the setting of what is hypothesized as the pro-drop parameter. At the syntactic level, the sentence in English is made up of the personal pronoun "it", which refers back to the noun phrase "the lightning bolt scar of his reflection" here. So he examined the lightning bolt scar of his reflection more closely. It looked normal. Examinó más de cerca la cicatriz en forma de rayo del reflejo. Parecía normal. So, at the syntactic level, the sentence in English is made up of the personal pronoun "it", in subject position, the finite and in this use linking verb "look", functioning as the predicator of the clause, and the subject complement "normal", an adjective which heads an adjective phrase. In Spanish, the sentence is made up of the main verb parecer, a verbo copulativo, and the adjective normal, functioning as complemento predicativo subjetivo obligatorio. The adjective is also the head of the adjective phrase and functions, like in English, as predicator of the Spanish sentence. In contrast to English, in which case we see the use of the personal pronoun as a realization, the personal pronoun as a realization of the argument selected for by the predicate functioning as predicator, the syntactic subject in the Spanish rendition is not realized canonically by means of a nominal located in preverbal position at the surface level, but it can be retrieved instead from the inflection of the verb parecía, this ia, indicating it refers back to a third-person singular entity, thus considered sujeto tácito desinencial. It may also be understood as retrievable from what was previously mentioned in the text, in which case it would also be called sujeto tácito contextual. So of importance here is at the syntactic level, the sentence in English is made up of the personal pronoun "it". Therefore, it has, if it is a personal pronoun, it has referential content, right? In subject position. In contrast, In Spanish, we have the verb, the adjective, and we have no employment in Spanish of a personal pronoun. Therefore, it is not the subject that is realized canonically by means of a nominal located in preverbal position, but rather it is retrieved from the inflection morphology of the verb in use, ia, parecía. So, all this makes it evident that in Spanish, the syntactic subject pronoun is not mandatory in every declarative sentence, for Spanish is classified as a pro-drop language. Unlike Spanish, English is a non-pro-drop language, so declarative sentences in this language must have a syntactic subject, be it an argument, as is evidenced in this case, or not, for them to be grammatical, that is to say, possible in this language. As regards the argument structure of the predicate functioning as predicator in each sentence, the adjective normal is a one-place predicate, predicado monádico, or the adjective normal, in both languages, that selects for only a theme as argument. The referring expression it in the English sentence and the sujeto tácito desinencial contextual in the Spanish sentence. The finite linking verbs look, with the same meaning as seem, have certain appearance, and parecer, are considered here variants of be and ser respectively. They are grammatical devices required by the syntax of both languages to carry the tense, person, and mood information which is necessary to have a sentence in both languages, since the predicator in each of them is non-verbal. Therefore, regarding the argument structure of the predicate that functions as predicator, both renditions are convergent. So having performed this, analysis, here you have our guidelines in order for you to know how to proceed when producing your contrastive analysis from now on, particularly when you are asked to use the tenets of the principles and parameters theory. First of all, you should state if the instance under analysis is a proof of the typology each language belongs to. That is to say, if this instance under analysis shows how English is non-pro-drop or how Spanish is pro-drop, or if it is an exceptional case in the sense of, for example, showing subject pronoun retention in Spanish for one of the reasons that you have listed in our handbook. Now, in order to state that, we should concentrate on the following: subject or object pronoun retention or omission. Is there retention of a subject pronoun in Spanish? If so, which is the effect achieved in that particular context by retaining a subject pronoun in a language whose typology is pro-drop? So if there is, subject pronoun retention in Spanish, what is the effect achieved, Among other reasons, is the pronoun retained because it stands alone, So therefore, it is a compulsory element, to use in this case. Is there a change of subject? So in order to avoid ambiguity, we should specify the pronoun whose referent we're, pointing to. Is the subject contrasted against with another? So is there a contrastive effect at stake, and therefore you ought to mention the pronoun, the personal pronoun, vos, contrasted against yo here. Is it to do with the inflections being identical for the two, persons involved, So to avoid ambiguity but pertaining to the inflectional morphology of the verb. In the case of the pronoun usted, this is generally kept to emphasize the polite tone of the utterance. So is this an instance of the pronoun usted, therefore left as a mechanism that serves an emphatic purpose. Now, is there omission of the subject in English? If so, is the subject omitted the subject of the declarative sentence or of another type of sentence? So, for a declarative sentence to be English, it ought to have a subject explicit at the level of surface representation. So, isn't it then an imperative sentence which has canonically no explicit subject at the level of surface representation? If the examples at stake show the typology of each language, what feature of the linguistic system in use does this example serve as evidence of? Right? The feature of, say, the language being of one specific type, thus the pronoun, be it an argument or not, ought to be present in pre-verbal position. Okay? If there is presence of expletives, say existential there, anticipatory it, dummy it, that we call expletives in general, the three of them, right? The three cases that are specified here as existential, anticipatory, or dummy. All these three cases are instances of this same sort of pronoun, expletive, right? Does the expletive fill the subject position because there's no other subject, right? As in, it's raining? Or does it fill the subject position because the notional or real subject has been moved to a non-canonical position, that is, to the end of the sentence? This would be an instance of extraposition, in which you have a grammatical subject located pre-verbally and the argument realized, at the end of the sentence, and the real subject, this argument, the real subject position at the end of the sentence, in accordance with what the principle of n weight establishes. If the expletive that appears fulfilling the initial position, which is generally attributed to the subject, is the expletive it, state if it is a case of an anticipatory it, and which is the subject it is anticipating. Therefore, in the case of an anticipatory it extra post construction, you would identify this it as an expletive, as an instance of anticipatory it, and then you would specify which is the subject, the notional subject, the argument subject that is located at the end of the sentence, and that this anticipatory it serves as anticipation for. Or if it is a case of a dummy it, as in it is raining, which would be the only subject present in the syntax. If the expletive that appears fulfilling the initial position, which is generally attributed to the subject, is the expletive there, state if it is part of a bare or if it is part of an extended existential sentence. Okay? And then when it comes to argument structure, you should identify the predicator, so there is a typo there, which is the predicator in each sentence. Therefore, which is the predicate functioning as predicator in each sentence. Which is a predicate functioning as predicator in each sentence, which are the arguments, that is to say the referring expressions, selected for, should there be any, by the predicate functioning as predicator. State the theta roles of each of the arguments, state if we're talking about an agent, a patient, etc. And after identifying the arguments, state the degree of the predicate, if it is a 0 place, a 1 place, so on and so forth. And is the argument structure of both examples correspondent or non-correspondent? Okay? Thank you very much, folks.